In this video clip, I'm going to walk you through the process of creating margins and pagination for a formal technical report. This is certainly the aspect of a technical report that gives students the most grief. There are 14 components or parts of a formal technical report. I will list them briefly here and we'll look at them in detail in just a minute. So begin with the front flyleaf, a letter of transmittal, a title page, the synopsis or summary, then a table of contents, table of figures, a table of tables. If you had a lot of equations in your report, you might actually include a table of equations. First page of chapter 1, and then all subsequent pages of chapter 1. First page of chapter 2 and all subsequent pages of chapter 2, etc. for subsequent chapters. Then there's the appendix, the bibliography, and finally the flyleaf. Let's get an overview. So I've laid this out. The front flyleaf is the first sheet of a document. It's blank, it's not numbered. It's likely there just to protect the document from scuffing and marking. The letter of transmittal follows next. It is the second sheet. It's page 1, and that's Roman numerals, lowercase, but the number is not put on this letter of transmittal, so it's not numbered. Now what about margins? Well, the right and bottom margins of all the pages in the document are 1 inch. 1 inch right and 1 inch bottom on all pages. The left margin on all pages in the document is 1.5 inch. Why is it bigger than the others? Well, likely to give space for binding. The top margin is the only one that changes throughout the document. It's 1.5 inches for the first page of each new part or section. This is a new part or section, so the top margin is 1.5 inch. The third sheet in the document is the title page, and it is in fact page number 2. It's not numbered, and the margins are as the same as the letter of transmittal, 1.5 inch top margin. Next comes the synopsis or summary. Typically this is less than 1 page long. Now, the title you should use for the synopsis is the word synopsis, and so I've written it in caps and bolded it, and that's the way it should be in your document. Now you would follow all titles with a blank line. So this in fact is the fourth sheet in the document, but it's page number 3, and it's the first page that is actually numbered. The number 3 in lowercase Roman numerals is in the center of the footer. And of course the top margin is still 1.5 inches because this is a new section. Then follows the table of contents. This is the title you should use, bolded, uppercase, center justified, followed by a blank line. This is page 4, and the number 4 in Roman numerals is in the center of the footer. It has a 1.5 inch top margin. Next is the table of figures. This is the actual title you should use, bolded, uppercase, center justified, 1.5 inch top margin, followed by a blank line. This is page 5. Page 5 is shown in the center of the footer. Next is the table of tables. This is a new section, hence we have a 1.5 inch top margin. This is the actual title you should use, bolded, uppercase, center justified, followed by a blank line. This is page 6, shown in the center of the footer. With the end of the tables, you're finished the introductory part of the document, so we actually get into the body of the report. So here is chapter 1. This is the first chapter in your actual report. Now you wouldn't necessarily use the term chapter 1. You might title it introduction or whatever is appropriate to your paper, but it should be bolded, center justified, uppercase, followed by a blank line. Since this is the first page in a new section, again you'd want a 1.5 inch top margin. What's different here is the numbering starts at 1. We move from Roman numerals to Arabic numerals, and it's still going to be center of the footer. Now, on the second and all subsequent pages of Chapter 1, presumably Chapter 1 is many pages long, several things change. First of all, you wouldn't have a title here. The typing just starts right at the top. There's no blank line after the first line. The top margin shrinks from 1.5 inches for the first page of a section. It shrinks to 1 inch for all subsequent pages of the same section. So notice the top margin is smaller. The other change you notice is that the pagination moves from the center of the footer to the right side of the header, top right. How are you going to do that? Well, you have to use section breaks, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. At the end of Chapter 1, you would then start Chapter 2. And this would be a title, bolded, uppercase, center justified, whatever title is appropriate, you would use it, followed by a blank line. The upper margin increases back to 1.5 inches since this is the beginning of a new section. And the page number, whatever it is, moves back down into the center of the footer. And then just as we saw in Chapter 1, all subsequent pages of Chapter 2 would begin without a title. You'd begin typing right at the top margin, which has been reduced to 1 inch. And the page number moves again from the lower center footer to the upper right side in the header. At the end of all the chapters in your document, you would then have the appendices. So this is the first of perhaps several appendices. This would be Appendix A. And since it's a new section, it'll have a 1.5 inch top margin, and you would use this actual title, Appendix A, or whatever you refer to it as in the body of your report. Leave a blank line after it, and again the page number moves down to the center of the footer. By the way, each appendice would be treated the same as Appendix A. You would start a new section for each appendix. At the end of all of your appendices, the final piece is a bibliography, and that's the title you should use, uppercase, bolded, center justified, followed by a blank line. And of course, you can use a 1.5 inch top margin since this is the beginning of a new section, and the page number must move to the center of the footer. The final sheet in the document is a rear flyleaf. It's blank, it's not numbered, it's simply there to protect your document from damage. So we've had a look at the pagination and the margin settings for a formal report. The next question is, well, how are we going to do that? If you would open a new Microsoft Word document. Now, for a formal report, the font size should be 12, but for our purposes, so we can view it more easily, I'm going to change that. Very large. Let's try 33 font size, just so we can see what's going on. Also, to help us view the margins, we're going to turn on the text boundaries. So if you go to File and Options, in the Word Options dialog box, choose Advanced Settings. And if you scroll down near the bottom of the Advanced group, you'll find Show Text Boundaries. Now these are non-printing lines, but they'll help us see what the margins are. And you can currently see that the upper margin is 1 inch, and you'll see left and right are also 1 inch. To recall, we want all of our left margins to be 1.5 inches, and we'll start with our top margins at 1.5 inches since most of them are that way to begin with. On the Page Layout tab, choose Margins, scroll down to Custom Margins. I want the top to be 1.5 inches and all left margins to be 1.5 inches, all right and bottom to be 1 inch, and say OK. Notice how the left margin has increased in size to 1.5 inch, and so has the top margin. Recall this is the first sheet. It is the flyleaf. Nothing's written on it, but I'm just going to put the word flyleaf on there so we can just keep track of what I'm displaying to you. This is the first sheet. It's blank. It's not numbered. You should hit Control-Enter to bring you to the next sheet. So the letter of transmittal is the second sheet. It's page 1, but it's not numbered. Control Enter creates a third sheet. This is my title page. The title page has the same formatting as the letter of transmittal. Now the next page is the synopsis, and this is where the first formatting change begins. So let's zoom out a bit so we can see what's going on. The synopsis will be different than the previous pages because we have to begin to display the page numbers. In order to do this without adding page numbers to the entire document, we're going to have to add a section break. I'm going to get my cursor below title page. Whatever you type on the title page, move the cursor below it. And on the Page Layout tab, choose Breaks and choose Section Break, Next Page. I'm going to type in synopsis followed by a space just to remind us. So we're going to have to begin displaying page numbers here on the synopsis. To display page numbers, go to the Insert tab and choose in the header and footer group page number, and this will be bottom of the page. And recall this will need to be centered, like here, plain number 2. All right, we can't really read those very well, but let's select one of them since one is highlighted. I'll use the Increase Font Size button here. Let's make it large enough that we can clearly read it. There, so we can see that's page number 3 for the title page, page number 4 for the synopsis. Double-click in the footer area, and the Design tab opens up. Notice how Link to Previous is selected. So what this is saying is this footer is linked to previous footers. Whatever formatting you have in the previous footers applies here. We want to unselect Link to Previous. That allows us to make changes to previous footers without affecting this footer. So the first thing I want to do is select any of the previous footers on page 1, 2, or 3 and delete them. Since the footer on this fourth sheet is not linked any longer, it will not delete the page number on the synopsis page. Next, we want to change the format of the page number from Arabic numerals to lowercase Roman numerals. So go ahead and select the 4, choose on the Design tab again, Page Number, format the page number. I'm going to change the number format in the Page Number Format dialog box from Arabic to lowercase Roman numerals. We also want to start the numbering at page 3. If you recall, this is actually page number 3 in our document, and say OK. Looks good. So to exit the footer, just double-click in the main space, or you can hit the Escape key. The next page is the table of contents. So you can simply use a Control Enter. We're not changing the formatting for this one. And so we can then identify this as table of contents. The margins are still 1.5 inch at the top, and we're using the lowercase Roman numerals in the center of the footer. Remember to leave a space after the title. Our next page will be the table of figures. Control Enter brings me a page break. This is my table of figures. And the table of figures is page 5. Control Enter gives me another page break, and page 6 will be the table of tables. Notice that will be page 6. The next page in our document will be chapter 1, and that will require reformatting the page numbers. In order to do that, you can't just use a page break, you have to add a section break. So choose the Page Layout tab, choose Breaks. Again, it's going to be a section break on the next page. So this is the first page of chapter 1 in Arabic numerals. In order to make that change, again, I have to go into the footer, Double click, it opens it up. I want to unlink or unselect this link to previous. That means this footer is no longer connected to the previous one. Now I can go ahead and make a change there. I can simply select this footer and on the Design tab, choose Page Number, format the page number. And I can change this now to Arabic numerals and reset it to 1. So far, we've made no changes to the upper margin. It's always been 1.5 inches because each page has been the first page of a new section. But on the next page, which is the second page of chapter 1, we have to change the upper margin size and we have to move the numbering from bottom center to top right. To make that change, we're going to have to add another section break. So I'm going to move back into the document, simply double click into the document space or hit the escape key. I'll press enter and I want to add a break. So that's under page layouts, break, section break, next page. All right, so this is the second page of chapter 1. I'm going to turn on the show hide button so we can see the non-printing characters just to see what we've done so far before we continue. So notice we used a page break to create the letter of transmittal. No difference in formatting occurs with a page break. We used a page break to bring us to the title page. But in going from the title page to the synopsis, we needed a section break because we had to change the number formatting. We went from no numbers to begin numbering. The section break between the title page and the synopsis allowed us to unlink the footers such that when we added numbering on the synopsis page, it did not add numbering to the previous pages. We wanted to continue the same format, so we just used a page break to go from synopsis to table of contents, from table of contents to table of figures, another page break to the table of tables. When we reached chapter 1, we had to change the number formatting from lowercase Roman numerals to Arabic. We needed a section break. That got us to chapter 1. And now we applied another section break again because we have to do more changes. We have to not only change our numbering from lower footer, center, to upper right header, but we also have to change the margin size. So with our section break, we can do that. Let's start by selecting the footer. Notice the link to previous is highlighted. We want to unselect that. And now we can delete the footer number without affecting the previous number. So notice I have page 1 for chapter 1, and then subsequent pages, we're going to move the numbering up here. Before we move it up here, we have to be careful to unlink the headers as well. So double click up in the header area and notice the link to previous is automatically selected. You want to unselect that link. Then select the page number icon. Now we're going to put the page number in the top of the page. Plain number 3 places it in the right. Let's select that number and make it much larger so we can see it. Notice that's page 1 and we want that to be page 2. So we want to choose, with the number selected, choose page number, format the page number, and we can start at 2. So we've successfully moved the page number from the lower center to the upper right. The other thing we want to change is the margins here. No special requirement here. Simply choose the page layout tab, margins, and I'll go back to custom margins. We want to decrease the top margin from 1.5 down to 1 inches. Say OK. All of these subsequent pages in chapter 1 would be formatted the same as this second page in chapter 1, and so you'd simply use page breaks, Control Enter each time for each of those pages. When you reach the last page in chapter 1 and you want to then go to the first page in chapter 2, it's a new section. You're going to have to move the numbers from top right to bottom center, and you have to increase the margin size again. And that means we need to add a section break. So double click in the body of your document and choose Page Layout, Breaks, Section Break, Next Page. This, remember, is going to be Chapter 2. There's the first page of Chapter 2. We need to move the page number to the bottom center of the page. So to do that, double-click in the header area, unlink to previous so it doesn't affect anything prior to it, select and delete that page number from the header, then double-click in the footer area and unlink to previous. Make sure you unselect this, otherwise it'll add page numbers to the bottom of the previous pages. And choose page number. This will be bottom of the page, centered, plain number 2. Again, just to make it large enough for us to see in the scale. Don't do this in your real document, but I'm going to make this much larger so we can see it. Now this, in our document that I'm working on right now, would be page 3. You can change it to whatever it is in your document. So with the number selected, choose to format the page numbers, and we'll start this one at 3 or whatever yours needs to be. Let's take a look and see if that worked. Notice I went from the end of chapter 1, page 2 in the top right, to the beginning of chapter 2, page 3 in the bottom center of the footer. The other change I need to make, of course, is the margin has to be 1.5 inches for the beginning of each new chapter. So on the Page Layout tab, we'll choose Margins, and we'll increase this margin size back up to 1.5 inches and say OK. Recall that the second and all subsequent pages of this new chapter will be formatted differently than the first page, so that means we need to add a section break. Double-click to get your cursor back in the body of the document. On the Page Layout tab, it's going to be a break, section break, next page. So this is the second chapter continued. Because we have a section break in here, that means that we can change our margin size. Let's do that right now. Margin's going to go back to 1 inch for the top margin because this is not the first page of a new section. It's a subsequent page. The other thing we need to do is move our number from the bottom center to the top right. So let's double click in the footer again. Remember to unlink to previous. Every time you want to make that change, you can delete the number from the footer. Did not delete the previous one because we unlinked it. Go back to the header, double click in the header, make sure that you unlink to previous, then choose page number, top of the page, plain number 3 puts it on the right. Let's select that so we can see what it is we've got there. I'm making it larger. And still selected, I want to change the format of that, so go to page number, format the page number. This will be page 4. And OK. So basically that's the process throughout all of the chapters. When you've finished all of your chapters, it's time for your appendix. So recall that an appendix starts a new section. I'm going to double click to get back in the body of the document. Don't do a page break. You have to add a section break here. Again, under Page Layout, Breaks, Section Break, Next Page. Let's take a look, make sure we can see that. There it is, section break. Now on this page, we are starting a new section, Appendix A, with a 1.5 inch top margin. And we want to move the page number back to the bottom again. So once again, get your cursor, double click in the header area, unlink to previous. You can then delete the page number in the header, double-click in the footer, unlink to previous, and you can now add a page number to the footer, bottom of the page, and centered. Once again, I'm going to select that. You wouldn't do this normally in a document, but I'm making it larger so we can see it in this view. That should be page 5. So under page number again, choose to format the page numbers, and this will be page 5, and OK. We're almost there. We've got the bibliography left. So let's double-click in the body of the document to get out of the header and footer. Since in my example here, my appendix is only one page, and my bibliography is the next page, it's also a new section. I don't have to really make any changes in this case. Control-Enter will keep the same formatting, and this is bibliography, page 6. The final page in the document is the rear flyleaf, and it's simply a blank page, and it's not numbered. And that means that we need to add a section break on the bibliography page so that we can delete the numbering on the rear flyleaf without deleting the numbering on the previous pages. So let's add a section break on the bibliography page. On the page layout tab, we'll choose breaks, section break, next page, and there's my rear flyleaf. I'll double-click in the footer and unlink to previous. And now I can delete this page number without affecting the previous pages. And that's it. So all of the sections of the final report have been assembled in correct sequence, and the margins and pagination has been adjusted accordingly.